169 nice days of Clippers talk. We've made it 169 days straight here on Clippers Talk. We're not stopping. Maybe, whenever the season ends, hopefully deep into June. Hey, turn off your phone, Adam. I'm Adam Osland. Welcome in. Appreciate you guys. Got a good show for you today, including a good guest in Justin Russo at Fly By Night. Subscribe to his Substack. Had Tomer Azarli on recently. You hear Justin Russo pregame and postgame, talking with players, talking with coaches. I want to get his read on where this Clippers team is at currently, where things are headed, and he'll help me preview the big game tomorrow against the Oklahoma City Thunder at Intuit Dome, 6 p.m. tip-off. Do I need to do my tongue twisters? 6 thick thistle sticks, 6 thick thistle sticks, 6 thick thistle sticks. 6 p.m. tip-off tomorrow night. Clippers taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder. We'll have your pregame show back here at 5. But I want to start with talking about last night's big victory, winning by 20 over the Memphis Grizzlies. And I want to visit some of the post-game audio from Coach B. Shaw, Kawhi, and Ivica Zubac, starting with Coach B. Shaw, your active head coach for the Clippers, filling in admirably for Tyronn Lue. Feel better. Coach, we are praying for a quick recovery. It sounds like he'll be back sooner than later. We'll see if he's back tomorrow. But here was Brian Shaw postgame.
Okay. You got to have 5-minute goal. Is this a case of just stacking games, stacking wins, and see when you end up at the see the goal?
Yeah, like I said earlier, we can't control what anybody else is doing, so we have to control what we're doing as best as possible. And everybody else keeps winning that we're jockeying with, trying to get to that 6th spot. We have to keep winning too. And so, we're just finding a way. The first half wasn't pretty. It was a chess game going on because they didn't start Edie. And then every time we took Zoo out, they came in with him and Jaren Jackson or him.
I commented about this during the game, during the broadcast. Carlo asked me, what are you seeing out there? And it was interesting. The Memphis Grizzlies and their strategy, they were waiting for Ivica Zubac to go out of the game, and then they'd go big with Zach Edey next to Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr.
Him and Huff, and they stayed big when we had our small lineup in. So I didn't want to tip my hand too early. So in the first half, I said, well, I'll just fill it out and keep seeing how they're attacking us with their 2 bigs. And then we just made a minor adjustment in the second half. We started Bogey instead of KD to stretch them out a little bit more because Jaren Jackson was guarding KD, and he was just staying in and clogging up the paint. And that's
sagging off of Chris Dunn is what Jaren Jackson was doing. It's what a lot of teams have been doing, what teams will be doing in the playoffs, unless he consistently knocks down shots from the outside.
Just seemed to open things up for us offensively.
Coach.
So that was the logic there of bringing in Bogey to start the second half over Chris Dunn from Brian Shaw.
With that lineup, with Bogey there, with the starting guys, got some real good success from that group. What did you guys see from them that made them so successful?
Well, you can't, if KD is struggling, I mean, he shot the ball well from 3 tonight. He was 3 for 7. But, when they put a big like Jaren Jackson in the middle and kind of sag off of him, tonight our thing was inside out, and inside being whether we were throwing it in the Zoo or just piercing the paint with penetration. And Zoo, they were making it tough on him tonight. They were coming, they were fronting him, they were doubling, they were coming right away. And then with Jaren.
Yeah, they were doubling Ivica Zubac early in the ball game immediately, and sometimes before he even got the basketball.
Jackson, he was in the paint, so we weren't able to really get into the paint. And we forced the ball too much trying to get it in there in the first half. And I think we had 8 turnovers at halftime, and they scored 21 points off of those 8 turnovers. So
Carlo Jimenez brought that up during the game. That was the worrisome trend to start things off. It was going the other way, where the Clippers, actually, the first two games against Memphis, they had 72, I think, points off of turnovers, which is a huge number combined when you take the first two games between these two teams. Last night, though, it was going the other way, where in the first half, as Bishaw just said, their 8 turnovers led to 21 points for the Memphis Grizzlies. And they do play with the fastest pace, but the Clippers handled it very well the first two games against them. Not so much in the first half last night.
Halftime, we just talked about that. That's the game right there. We had live ball turnovers, which allowed them to get out. We lost Luke Kennard a lot in the first half because of those live ball turnovers.
Yeah, they did.
And, so we took care of the ball better in the second half and got back and identified the shooters. And then they weren't able to, try to outwit us in terms of throwing the two bigs in the game. They had to stay smaller because once we got a lead, they had to start trying to catch up.
Right. I think you touched on this a lot already, but having those 21 points off turnovers, I'm sure that contributed to the defensive. Like, that was a little shootout in the first half. It was a lot like Tuesday. What concerns you have with just being able to establish, defensive mindset early in the game, and how happy are you that there are quarters tonight, the third quarter, Tuesday night, the fourth quarter, where if you're like, hey, they're not scoring 20, like the team is able to execute that.
Yeah, I think that they had a sense of urgency once we got to half court, I should say, in the second half. But we talked about the turnovers. We had been, I would say, probably over the last 8 or 10 games, really been taking care of the ball. So it was kind of uncharacteristic for us as of late to be turned.
I've been telling you guys, the Clippers have been much better taking care of the basketball, as predicted. When Kawhi came back, it would clean up a lot of the turnover issues. Some people didn't believe that would happen. Definitely not to this extent. But if you look at just the last, 15 games here, the Clippers are turning the basketball over just 12.9 times per game. That's down from 16 times per game. They're down 3 turnovers per game the last 15. If you go last 10, it's even better. They're down to 12.1. If you go last 8, what B. Shaw was talking about here, the Clippers, I guess it's at 13, but they have been turning the basketball over about 3 times less per game over the last 15.
Turning the ball over the way that we were. I think I can remember twice where we had 4-on-1s and we ended up turning the ball over. There were a couple of times where there were loose balls. We kind of got them, and then they ended up with the ball, so it was some kind of weird turnovers. But
yeah, last night they had 15, but that's uncharacteristic of how they have been as of late.
They were able to lock in that third quarter. They held them to 16 points in that third quarter. And then as we started getting stops, you could see them starting to find the joy again of, and it started to energize us on the offensive end. And
they've been emphasizing playing with joy out there. Yes, you're competing. Yes, you're standings watching at times, but have fun. Play with joy out there. Because if you do, it leads to good things, clearly.
That stretch where, I don't remember at what point I put Ben Simmons in the game for Zoo. He really got us going, kicking ahead, to our shooters, and out of bounds. One was an out of bounds play, but just his heads up, head and eyes up, and hitting the first open man that he sees. As the guys get more used to playing with him, they'll start running out more on the break because they know that they're going to receive the ball. And so we're just trying to take advantage of that when he comes in the game because he's so versatile.
Bishaw, has it surprised you at all over these last couple of games, just how quickly things have come together for you guys with everybody healthy and how kind of seamlessly they gelled together? And so
Justin Russo with the question. He'll be joining us in about 10 minutes.
such a short period of time.
It may seem seamless. It doesn't always seem seamless to us, but no, I think that, we felt like we would be a team that the rest of the league wouldn't really think about, because especially starting out the season, Kawhi, however many games he missed to start the season. And then we just never had a full roster of healthy players. And so we always felt internally like, we know what we're capable of. And it was just a matter of, having everybody available. And the way that we're playing right now, everybody's sharing the ball. And we can throw a bunch of different combinations out there. And I think that teams aren't used to seeing us the way that we are right now. And so,
as much as people are complaining or asking, what are they going to do with lineups? Who's going to play where? It's like the opposition is asking that same thing too. They don't know what's coming from the Clippers.
So that's throwing them off a little bit because there's combinations on the floor that haven't been on the floor at all, of course, this season. So I'm just happy that it is coming together, and I just want to keep building on it.
I told you two things would happen when Kawhi came back. I said this in November. They would turn into a top 10 offense. Let's see, last 10 games, third best offense in the league. Last 15, seventh best offense in the league. And if they could hold on to where they have been defensively all season long, when Kawhi comes back, which I believe they would be top 10 in both areas, offense and defense. Last 10 games on defense, they're 10th. So their net rating, their last 10 games overall, is third in the league. Any questions?
B. Shaw, so in the third quarter, you said with Ben Simmons, I kind of want you to talk about his versatility. He can play defense, he can rebound and facilitate. How important is that to be able to dominate the game without even having to really score a basket? You kind of talk about it, the impact in that aspect.
BJ Matthews there. Great question about Ben Simmons. Put it up, Ben.
Yeah, there's certain players that have been in the league. I grew up kind of like a big brother to Jason Kidd in Oakland, and he was a player that always, I remember him from CYO to, all the way up, impacted every game that he played in without having to score a point. So Ben can affect the game defensively. He can affect, because he can guard 1 through 5. He has a high basketball IQ. And guys love to play with guys that love to pass the ball. Usually everybody, when you go to a workout, guys are working on shooting and they're working on moves. You don't see guys really working on passing. And so it almost energizes the rest of the guys when you have somebody who wants to pass the ball and doesn't care at all about shooting. They find openings, they cut harder, and they're more alert because they know at any time he can find them. And so, like I said, we're trying to jumpstart him being out there and having our guys get more and more familiar with him because there's still a lot more of him to be seen. And, and so we're slowly kind of unpeeling that. And I think we still have, a lot of juice in the fruit to figure out. And like I said, I'm happy that it's starting to come together as fast as it is in a time when we really need it to, because the Warriors keep winning, Minnesota keeps winning. This was a team that was ahead of us, so that helps us. We have the tiebreaker against them if it ever came down to that. So we just have to keep building. We got another big game coming up in 2 days, and so we have to get ready for that.
Thank you.
There was B-Shot post-game. Now I want to hear from the Claw. He spoke for a couple of minutes after the ball game.
Sorry.
Kawhi Leonard.
Does it kind of surprise you how quickly things have come together with everyone healthy on the court and these last couple of games and everything?
Justin Russo there. He's coming on in 5 minutes.
Hasn't been quick to me. We started off rough, but it's been good the last few games. Able to get some wins. Everybody contributing in their spots. If you're playing, 10 minutes or the whole game, everybody's collectively putting in the effort to win.
How much fun is that? With everybody contributing like that.
It's fun because you're involved. It's not fun being not involved in the game. And you're trying to force things. The teammates see that you're forcing things, but it's pretty much been a pretty good flow so far.
You guys had a practice yesterday. Rishawn was saying how you want to keep it light, but you want to keep it light, keep it fun, but obviously be detail oriented. Like, what was that balance like for you in practice? How did it kind of carry over to this game tonight?
Just coming in and, like you said, hitting on a few details and making sure that we're sharp and knowing what we're doing, different segments of the game. So, it's always good to be able to, refresh your mind or your memory of what's expected from you.
You mentioned certain guys, obviously maybe play 10 minutes one night, maybe relied on more another night. How do you feel like this group has handled that, some of the fluctuation in roles?
It's been good lately. Obviously, human nature comes in. You want to play more minutes or, get more shots or a better defensive assignment. But, for the most part, everybody's been in good spirits pretty much.
Now, one of the things you mentioned last game we were talking about, Zoo, is that as guys start to get more touches, they can become more patient and don't feel like they have to force as much. You coming up the way you did, playing around Hall of Famers really in your career and being more of a role guy, do you feel like that helps you give better advice to some of your younger teammates who may be in a similar role right now around stars?
Great question, Joey Lynn.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Wanted to do more at times, being young and not knowing how my career was going to go. That's what you think about just because you want to stick or stay in the league. And it's not always about scoring, getting the most shots in the game. So, I try to give whoever it is a peace of mind of, what I've been through and how long it took me to get here. So, I'll help with that.
You have a big opportunity Sunday. I'm on a team in the West. The Clippers haven't beaten them yet, but you haven't played them yet. How are you looking at OKC? How are you looking at that game Sunday?
Like I always say, enjoy the win tonight, and we'll figure it out tomorrow. But it's like any other game. Even if we're playing a bottom seed team, I think we pretty much need all the wins right now that we could get. But it just gives us an opportunity to see how the best of the league is playing, and try to either use it as a practice or whatever for us to move forward.
So Kawhi kind of alluded to how it can be a measuring stick opportunity. All right, here's Big Zoo post game.
Thanks, Kawhi.
Zoo, another double for you. You guys won 9 of 10 now. Is it at all maybe surprising you that you guys are usually when you incorporate guys, you don't always get wins in those. You guys have been able to incorporate guys back from trade injury, also rack up wins. Has that been surprising to you at all?
I mean, we lost games in the beginning, post All-Star break. We lost a few that we should have won. I think because we missed some guys. Those guys were, new guys trying to figure out with them, trying to figure out lineups. We missed some games, but I don't think it's surprising. We got a bunch of high IQ players, experienced players who know how to play the game the right way. Shows on the court.
Do you feel like that's the most aggressive that you've been able to start a game? And how did you feel like
That was
Good question here from Law Murray asking him, was that the most aggressive you've been doubled to start a game before?
They were coming right away, and they didn't even wait for the dribble. So they were coming on the catch, and they were, even if I cut it far out, they were coming. So just got to make the right pass.
How much?
And we find a good shot.
How much do you pay attention to the standings and where you guys are?
Listen to this.
A lot.
He says he pays attention to the standings a lot. Ivica Zubac's here. Listen to this.
A lot.
And by doing that, does it add any more significance to these games? Like you have OKC coming up.
For sure. For sure. I mean,
Not shying away from it, not downplaying it, not minimizing it. He's fine with making it part of the story. Watching standings a lot.
we want to focus on ourselves and win as many games as we can. But at the same time, every night I'm watching the games. I'm watching the teams in front of us, teams that are behind us in the standings, hoping they lose. And being a hater, but
hoping they lose and being a hater.
Hoping they lose and being a hater, but hoping they lose and being a hater, but hoping they lose and being a hater, but no, we're trying to win as many games as we can. Focus on us and see where that takes us.
How do you look at that OKC game? Is it a test? Is it a challenge? Is it a
Must win. Every game is a must win for us. We're feeling good. We're playing good. I think we're in a good rhythm right now, and it's obviously going to be a challenge. I think that's the best team in the league throughout the whole year, throughout the whole season. So it's really going to show, I don't know if it's going to show where we at, but it's going to be a good challenge for us.
Yesterday at practice, B. Shaw said that he's called you, Bogey, and Nico the Euros. I guess when you guys are on the floor, kind of what has made that trio so good when they have been on the floor?
Who's that? I know that voice. I recognize that voice. That's Justin Russo asking the question. He's coming on in 1 minute.
High IQ.
Are you saying other guys don't have high IQ though?
No, I'm just saying European players are
high IQ?
high IQ players. They are very fundamental. I think, playing as a pro from a younger age really, helps you to learn basketball. You gotta understand basketball. You gotta play with IQ if you want to get on the floor in Europe. And we all went through that. We all went through the younger categories where they teach you stuff that I think they don't teach kids over here. They teach you all the defensive rotations, all the spacing on offense, like all the fundamentals. And I think it's easy to play with them. They got a lot of experience. They are really good players that played in so many games, seeing a lot of defenses, offenses. They know what to do at all times, and it's just be patient and read the game.
So I don't think of you as a Laker, but obviously you and B. Shaw were with the Lakers together in the career. Like, what feels different now compared to when he was kind of mentoring you when you first came into the league?
I mean, I didn't play much, but
That was La Murray asking him about what's changed being coached by B. Shaw because he was with him with the Lakers too.
feels now like he trusts me a lot. He's got confidence in me. He's trying to post me up. He's trying to get me the ball in the paint. He's a big believer in the inside-out game, and he want to establish that, paint and playing inside, and then that's going to open up all the shots. And, he's been doing a great job.
B. Shaw, a big believer in the inside-out game. I'm a big believer in our next guest. Let's bring him in. You just heard from him post-game last night. He was there in the locker room asking the tough questions. It is Justin Russo back on Clippers Talk. Justin, thanks for doing this.
No problem, man. How you doing?
I'm good. Make sure to follow him, guys, at Fly By Night on X. That's Fly By KNITE. And make sure to subscribe to his Substack. So let's start with the question you asked of Ivica Zubac there, and then we'll get to the last one we just heard from him on that answer because I find that interesting too. But you mentioned the Euros and why they're so good together. And he quickly said high IQ players. What do you mean? And you follow it up, and there's a funny little exchange there. But is that all it is?
I hope people know I was being sarcastic with him. I wasn't
Yeah,
trying to get him like on a gotcha thing. It was a very funny moment. Like it was good though. Everyone was laughing, and Zoo took it pretty well.
Yeah, Zoo has a great sense of humor, as do you. Does that explain why that three-man lineup is like a plus net 22 when they have Batum and Bogey and Ivica Zubac on the court? What are you seeing?
I just think the ball movement. I talked to Nico before the game about it because I'm going to end up writing about it a little bit just on what I'm seeing and kind of what the numbers are saying. But Nico basically said kind of similar to what Zoo said, which is high IQ guys who they can move without the ball. So, it's a lot of quick little decision making. It's kind of prime Spurs-esque where, you have a half a second, you better, pass or shoot and just get off the ball and just keep it moving. And that's kind of what they've kind of subscribed to, over in Europe. And that's how they learn to play. So they kind of feed off of each other from there. I mean, we've seen beautiful sequences of play with all three guys on the floor, just the three of them together. So I find it very interesting to see how they fit together. I mean, last night, I think they played only 3 minutes together. For the year, they're according to NBA stats, they're at 103 minutes, a plus 20.4 net rating, which is still very good. Now, obviously, a lot of this is small sample size, so over the coming, couple of weeks, maybe things change. But for right now, it seems like they're playing well because Nico's a very good entry passer, and so he can get the ball to Zoo, and Bogey's a great pick and roll guy. And you got, teams can't just leave Nico open either. And I think there's a nice little, symbiosis going on there with the trio.
The Euro's up right now. All right. In that trio, the newest addition in Bogdan Bogdanovic, it feels like, and from what I've seen, he and Ivica Zubac just clicked in with instant chemistry on the court and off the court. Is there more to their relationship? Because I don't believe they were close or tight, even though obviously both from similar parts of the world, but it just seems like there's a real understanding there, and it's made this team even tighter.
Yeah, so I don't believe they'd ever met before. Well, I shouldn't say never met before. Obviously, you meet guys on the court when you play against them, but Bogey told us the other day that when he got traded to the Clippers, Zoo took him out and they went out for coffee. And so they got to know each other, a little bit better. They speak on the court to each other in a Serbo-Croatian mixture of language that basically they just understand, and they're able to call things for themselves, with that dialect and their verbiage that other players just can't really pick up on unless they're playing against like Nikola Jokic on a given night, right? Like he's like one of the only other players in the league who would pick it up. So they have their own interesting little chemistry that's forming, and I think we're seeing it in it manifests itself in interesting ways. For instance, one of the things if people have noticed is when Bogey gets downhill to the rim and Zoo's on the floor, Bogey's been pretty good at like spoon feeding over the top to Zoo in tight spaces and kind of allowing Zoo to get easy buckets that way. I think it's been a big help for him.
Yeah, I love the way he's able to probe the interior of the defense. Just the way he's able to attack.
I didn't know I was on a podcast with James Harden,
I couldn't help myself there, but Bogey keeps his dribble so well as he gets into the teeth of the defense. And there was, as you mentioned, a lob over the top of the defense to Ivica Zubac. We saw that late in the game against Cleveland on a great roll from Ivica Zubac. He was patient, Bogey, waiting for him to flash open. He eventually did. He found him. That's a nice wrinkle to this team and just making them that more diverse with the amount of guys that can run that type of and that style of offense.
It is, and I think we also have to give credit a little bit to James Harden in this scenario too, because a lot of their minutes with those three on the floor have been with James. So James, as a main ball handler, soaks up another team's best defender to where, perimeter defender wise, to where Bogey isn't having to initiate actions against number one defenders and top line premier perimeter defenders like James is. So it has like a trickle down effect a little bit to where Bogey's able to get to places that maybe he wouldn't be able to get to against, the Alex Carusos of the world, just to say, because OKC's coming up on Sunday, like how, because Caruso's going to be guarding James when they're on the floor against each other. So Bogey gets to go against someone else. Not to say OKC doesn't have other good perimeter defenders, but Caruso is their best one. So, I do believe there is a trickle-down effect that has allowed this to happen, and Bogey's been a big beneficiary of this, to where I don't think people realized before he got to the Clippers how big he is. And I don't think they understood his skill set as much, because in Atlanta, playing next to Trae Young, Trae's the main ball handler, as he should be. Like, there's no disagreement from anyone, or at least there shouldn't be there. But Bogey showed a lot in the FIBA circles, for the last 15 years, Bogey's been incredible as a FIBA player over in Europe with Fenerbahce, with FIBA, and now coming over here, he did not come to the NBA until he was 25 or 26. I think he was very refined when he came over, but they also didn't ask him to do as much as he did overseas as they're asking him to do here. And I think we're starting to see a little bit more of the FIBA Bogey, kind of the archetype where he is being able to be a pick and roll ball handler more. James mentioned it last night in the locker room post game that, he just a very smart guy, and he's a very good passer and a very adept, at finding spaces. And I think honestly, that trade has made the team on the court a lot better. And in the locker room with Zoo, it's kind of incredible to see. They have a back and forth in the locker room while reporters are standing there, waiting, to get one for an interview, and they're going back and forth with their own language. It's phenomenal to watch.
You asked Coach B. Shaw a great question in the pregame about how dominant they've been when Ivica Zubac has gotten up at least 15 shots in a ball game. And I'm sitting next to Brian Seaman, and he pulled up the record right next to me and showed that they're 12-4 when Ivica Zubac takes 15 shots or more. The a-hole that I am, as he quietly, because it's like church in there while they're listening to the head coach's pregame. So he showed it to me on his phone. And then the a-hole I am, I pulled up that Kansas lost to Arkansas, and I made it seem like I was about to show him some stat or something, and I turned my phone over his way. As Brian Seaman, obviously a Jayhawk through and through. But
he must have loved that.
Oh, boy. Yeah, he got a real kick out of it. Hot damn. Do you think there's a difference in the emphasis of how much Ivica Zubac has been getting featured at all with B. Shaw courtside right now as we're still waiting for Coach Lue to return?
I don't think there's been a big discrepancy. I understand why people think there has been. But if you go back, even before, Ty's been dealing with the back thing. So even before Ty had to, step away, there was a lot of stretch of games where Zoo was getting the ball. I mean, that Phoenix game in Phoenix, they relied on him for everything. And part of the reason Ty was very upset after that game is because guys were not feeding him enough. And, last night while I was watching the game in person and this morning, when I actually put on a little bit of the game from last night this morning, the thing I kept going back to is being in Phoenix for that game and just the post game that Ty had, and having the conversations with him back in LA after they came back home.
Justin, can I play something for you? Because this ties in beautifully. I don't know if you've heard this audio, but this was Brian Shaw after that game. Before the next game against Detroit, the very next day, he's talking with Carlo pregame. Listen to how strongly he put it about getting Ivica Zubac the basketball.
Thanks so much, Adam. Here with assistant coach Brian Shaw, patient available against Cleveland. What did you take away?
Can you hear that okay?
I can hear it good, yeah.
What stood out to you from having everyone around for the first time?
That when you have everybody available and you have guys that were accustomed to not having everybody available, there's an expectation that everybody's going to.
Wait a second. I'm a dumbass. Now I have it.
Thanks so much, Adam. Here with assistant coach Brian Shaw before the Clippers take on the Charlotte Hornets.
Wait a second.
Oh, you're cooking right now.
No, I got it.
Thanks so much, Adam. Here with assistant coach Brian Shaw before the Clippers take on the Detroit Pistons. Coach Zoo, 35 points last game, a career high for him. What does it do for a player during the regular season when you're able to run an offense through him as a number one option that could help maybe down the line in a playoff-like situation?
Well, I mean, it gives him confidence. We have to get better as a team at recognizing when somebody like that is going the way he was going last night, and as efficient as he was, to keep featuring him and keep feeding him and put our personal agendas and individual accolades aside and keep riding him, because, from the beginning of the game, we were feeding him. They were double teaming him, which was why it was so beautiful the way we played in the first half. Everybody was involved. When they double teamed him, we kicked it out. Everybody made the right play. And then we didn't continue to do that in the second half, particularly in the fourth quarter. We stopped getting the ball inside to him. And he, this year, obviously, it's been his best year of his career. And he's the biggest advantage that we have on a nightly basis. Teams are coming to double team him. And he's our most efficient player in terms of, scoring and his shot attempts and things of that nature. And so we just have to recognize that and ride it, while we can.
So not only does he say he's the biggest advantage we have on a nightly basis, he said we have to put personal agendas aside. That was pretty strong language. That was before the game against Detroit where James Harden dropped 50 that night. So to your point, what's interesting, what you're saying is Coach Lou was saying that post game too, and I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah, this has been a theme throughout the season. It's a lot of the frustration that has boiled over in some post games, but more so after that Phoenix post game. Ty was that was. I told Ty, a couple days later, it was probably one of the 3 angriest I've ever seen him after a loss or after a game in general. And it wasn't because they lost. It was just the manner in which they just gave it away. And I kind of think that played a factor. And when I was rewatching the game a little bit today, it kind of dawned on me. I actually think the Phoenix loss was good for them, because I think it kind of turned a light bulb on inside their own brains of, look, we're making this harder than it has to be on ourselves, and we just need to simplify everything. And if it means getting Zoo the ball 25, 30 times a game, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to shoot the ball 30 times a game, but just get him the ball in the post, 30 times a game. Good things happen nearly every time he touches the ball. So why would we stop going to that? It was a problem, especially during that stretch of where they were losing games out of the All-Star break, where they would have a stretch of play where they would get back into games, or they would establish a lead through him, and then they would funnel away and kind of not ice him out, but kind of go away from him for a while. And it led to a lot of problems. And I think they've realized over the last couple weeks, just give him the ball. Easiest way to stem the tide is just give him the ball. Beginning of the third quarter, Kawhi made a couple shots, but what'd they do? They got him the ball. That's what they need to do. And it's for everyone. James has to get him the ball. Offense sometimes gets way too stagnant. Even when James is making some threes, you can see how it just devolves into an isolation style, which obviously is one of the greatest isolation players of all time. So you just deal with it because he is so successful with it. But then there's a lot of dribbling at times that doesn't lead anywhere for guys, not just James, but for other players. So just get Zoo the ball and good things happen. It's literally that should be the mantra of this team going forward.
Some people in the chat are like, teams are trying to take it away. It's like, if they are trying to take it away, that means they're doubling early like they were last night in the first quarter, doubling with him not even having the ball, off ball. That's a good thing. You create an advantage that way. Or if he receives the basketball, he can make the right pass now and make the right read. So, there's no downside whatsoever. The excuse of, well, they're zoning him up and they're trying to take it away. It's like, great. Then you have an advantage somewhere. That's the point.
Yeah, and it's funny because Kawhi's actually mentioned that getting the ball more has leads players to being more patient and accepting the patience that comes with it. I think we're seeing that with Zoo over this. You're actually seeing now. I've mentioned before on a lot of places, progress is not linear. But with Zoo this year, I think you've seen a linear progress from him as far as decision making and patience. Beginning of the year, I won't say he panicked, but when he got the ball, he knew he had an idea, I just need to go quick to get what I need to get, and then we can just keep it moving. I think he's been more willing and accepting of double teams and accepting of the pressure and how defenses are tilting the floor against him, to where now he's able to make reads that maybe he wasn't able to make early in his career, because even up until maybe the early point of last season, Zoo's primary passing profile just came from him as a short roll passer. But now we're seeing him as a post-up passer. We're seeing him do all sorts of other things, on that end of the floor if he's not scoring. So, it is oddly fascinating. A couple of years ago, when Daniel Tice was still with the team, I wrote an article about how, about the Gortat screen that Zoo had sort of kind of mastered. He's brought that back a little bit. He hadn't done it as much over the last year or so, but now he's brought it back a little bit. And last night there was a layup. I want to say it was a bogey layup late in the shot clock, and it was Zoo who got the seal screen in the restricted area to block out 2 defenders. And we're seeing a level of Ivica Zubac that I don't think a lot of people thought was possible, but he truly is and has entered his prime.
High IQ player, must be European.
Yeah, according to him, it's all Europeans. That's all it is.
Exactly. I want to talk about Kawhi Leonard with you and the turning point this season for him, because I felt like the game against Atlanta, we saw him play much better on the defensive end. And since then, he's kind of kept that up. And now he looks like he's more comfortable being a two-way superstar again that is extremely efficient, as he had another very efficient game last night. What are you seeing with Kawhi in terms of ratcheting things up? And is it just about how he talked about it post-game? It's our make or break time in the season. Like this stretch is going to make or break us. Is he treating it like we're in that playoff gauntlet already, and that's why he's turned up? What is it?
A lot of guys have already treated it like that. I mean, you talk to him, and it's basically like, each game is a must-win game. Like, there's no, that's just how they're treating it. They treat it like it is a playoff run now. For Kawhi, I don't know when he turned the corner as far as defense, but I have noticed it over the last couple of games. He's a lot more jumpy defensively. I know that sounds like a weird term to use, but he's a lot more deliberate in his movements on the defensive end. Early when he came back, as is the case with him, he doesn't really look up to snuff defensively when he comes back from injuries. He didn't look that great defensively when he first came back. And even last night, there were some instances where he didn't look that good defensively. Like Luke Kennard, I believe, beat him twice for layups, which happens. It's the NBA. But he has been more disruptive in passing lanes. And I think his diagnosing of plays on the defensive end and playing passing lanes and getting down into his shrinks and his helps has been at a quicker level. I feel like his computing processing speed, I know everyone calls him a machine, but that's what it feels like, is I think his processing speed has actually kicked into a good gear for him, back almost to where he was when he was kind of at the peak of his play last season.
And we're starting to see the mid-range shots are falling again. Over his last 5 games, from 10 to 14 feet out, he's shooting 68%. Or if you go 8 to 16 feet out, he's 16 to 24. That's 67%. That's the Kawhi that we know and love. Like, that's his superpower. When he's doing that stuff, you can't stop him. And it wasn't there early on when he came back. It was kind of very hit and miss from him, but we expect him to just be automatic in the mid-range. So I was kind of wondering if his defense is fueling his offense a little bit. He's feeling good defensively. He's playing better there. He's got more confidence on the offensive end, a little bit more pop too, but he's getting to his spots now, Justin, like at the rate he was last year and just shooting those very high efficiency numbers.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. If you actually look at his profile, I know it's like a handful of games, but it's like his last 5 or 6 games, he's shooting like 60% on twos, which I know is an insanely high mark and one that we've become accustomed to with Kawhi. He's just very efficient, inside the paint and from the short mid-range areas. But his first like 20 games after coming back, he was only, and I say only at 50% on twos, which is very low. He wasn't really driving to the rim. If you recall his first couple games back, he looked, I dare I say, he actually looked pretty bad inside the arc. Like, he did not look good at all. I think he was like 2 of 12 on twos in that stretch. It wasn't good. He's gotten better as the season's gone along. And going back to the decisive thing, he is a lot more decisive getting to his spots on the floor. Obviously, the Cleveland game, he was post fading over guys, and it was like, oh, it's Kawhi Leonard. Like, every now and then, it's kind of funny to watch him. Every now and then, you kind of see him on the floor. And I won't say you forget that he's on the floor, but you're like, oh, Kawhi's out there. And then, like, about a minute later, he'll do something. You're like, oh, Kawhi's out there. And it just jumps up and hits you that Kawhi Leonard is still very good and isn't at the level that we saw last year. And yet I think it's coming. The stretch that he's put together recently, last 13, 14 games, it can't be swept under the rug. And I know he says it's just about stacking days and, it's not about the individual stuff for him. But the Clippers have to feel very good about where they are, considering he is being worked back in. Like, this is still a process. He's still learning how to fit in around this team. They're still learning how to fit around him, even though he's been around these guys for a couple years, bar a few of the players. But, like, there's still a learning curve, and it seems like they're knocking it out of the park in the last couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm extremely encouraged now because after the game against the Cleveland Cavaliers, he obviously got up for it. It was a huge game, and he looked like prime Kawhi Leonard in that one. And he still looked very good last night. He wasn't as aggressive out there. But, I mean, the fadeaway he had near the right elbow in the fourth quarter on D. Wade in that game against the Cavaliers, like, that was insane. Like, his elevation, the fall away on that is incredible, where he starts and where he ends up in with that fadeaway. And then the way he cooked Evan Mobley with the turnaround spinning baseline jumper to end the game, that's Kawhi Leonard. That's him. And knowing he could do that against top-level competition, to me, that's all I needed to see.
You know what's funny is there was a shot he had last night. I don't remember when it was in the game. It might have been, I think it might have been like it had to be in the second quarter because they were going away from me, which is towards the wall. So he had like this like 12 or 13 footer maybe, and it looked so flat, and yet he just drilled it. And I know that it sounds weird, but when his shot has no arc and it goes in, that's when I feel like he's at his best, because he's getting the lift he needs without even having to adjust the arc on his shot. And I think that's a positive sign of progress for him.
No, that's a great point, because he does have a line drive to him when he's really in the zone, which is something you see from Michael Jordan back in the day too, which is why I always feel like Kawhi's the second three-peat MJ with his movement and stuff out there. He's MJ 96. So we talked about Kawhi. We talked about Big Zoo. I want to talk about the overall mood of this team, because B. Shaw has also been stressing playing with joy out there and having fun while they're in this highly competitive environment, and especially when you look at the Western Conference standings right now and trying to get out of the play-in. What does that mean to you? Like, some people could interpret that as like, come on, guys, you got to be locked in. You got to be fully focused. You got to be balls to the wall all the time. Like, what do you mean you're trying to have fun out there? You're getting paid millions of dollars. We need to win this game. But to me, it's kind of like, well, if you're having fun, there's a better chance you're going to win the game if you enjoy playing with one another and just kind of get lost in the game a little bit more.
I honestly, it sounds weird to credit two guys who barely play. I think there's a Patty Mills and Drew Eubanks factor here that is kind of like, I won't say been glossed over, but it has kind of boiled under the surface. If you watch them during games, Adam, I know you watch everything on the court as it's happening. If you watch those two on the sidelines, they're constantly up and cheering guys on. They're always the first two guys off the bench to greet guys, to pick them up if things aren't going well. I think a lot of the credit for the joy of this team right now has to be, or not a lot, but some of the credit has to be given to the guys like that who are keeping it together, knowing they're not playing really outside of maybe a couple minutes here and there. And they're getting everyone else to buy in still. James had a quote last night after the game where he said, I don't care if I score 30 points or 10 points. I just want to win. And I kind of think that's where a lot of the guys are now. Is I don't give a damn about my individual numbers. We just need to win the game. Kawhi talks about, it doesn't matter how he plays. We just need to win. We just need to get wins. And I think you're seeing that with a lot of the guys now is, yeah, it's great if I have a great night, but what's it matter if we lost the game? And I think guys like Patty and Drew are keeping them together, because I think guys can look at them. If you're on the court and you see guys like Patty and Drew who are cheering them on and are accepting of a role that doesn't give them really any minutes, and they're still being supportive teammates, I think that also empowers you to go out there and play freer, knowing that there isn't a guy who's kind of, I guess, rooting, for his own benefit against yours, and, playing against the odds against each other. So I think there's an actual harmony that's happened in the locker room since the trade deadline, but it also took several tough losses to get there. I think there was, like I said, I think that Phoenix loss was a turning point. I think it was a look in the mirror moment for guys. And I think you've seen the fruits of that since. And, playing with joy also, like, there's plays in each game now where you're watching, it's like, they look like they're having fun, where they're throwing multiple behind the back passes to each other. Ben Simmons threw one to Nico, who then threw one to DJ, who then Euro step dunked on Jaren Jackson. And it was like, it's like Globetrotter stuff happening nearly every night on like a sequence or two. And I think those type of plays, those type of sequences, those types of guys, they make you want to come to work every day. They make you want to pass them the ball. They make you want the ball from them. And I think the ball has found energy. Like you hear this all the time, the ball finds energy. I think if you actually make a willing effort to play the right way, as Ty's talked about for years, just play the right way, I think there is joy to be had in the game of basketball.
Just a couple more for you here, Justin. Given what we saw in the second half with Bogey starting instead of Chris Dunn, do you think they start to go away from Chris Dunn in the starting lineup?
No.
No?
No. I think the way you need to look at Chris is he's a guy who has to start. Like he or DJ have to start because of the defensive energy. They have to save James and Bogey and Norm essentially on perimeter defense because you don't want to wear those guys out. As great as they are offensively, and yes, there's 3 good perimeter players offensively, you also don't want to wear them out early in games. So Chris has a very necessary role. And the fact that they can bring in DJ off the bench, I was telling Grant Mona last night, because we sit next to each other at the game, I was telling Grant, I was like, I don't know any other team that can just, how many other teams in the NBA can bring a guy like DJ off the bench for Chris to spell him and still have an elite perimeter defender out there to save other guys. Like it's kind of crazy to watch, in person and on TV. But Chris is a necessary role. Now, at the end of games, you will see Bogey close over Chris. I think their best closing lineup involves Bogey in Chris's place, and the other 4 guys should stay in.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if it's not done, I guess my point is, will we see more of DJ instead of Dunn in the starting lineup? I don't think they could start Bogey next to Norm, next to James Harden, obviously, but DJ to me gives you a little bit of the best of both worlds because he's a slightly better shooter, slightly better scorer. He had a great slash to the basket for a 2-handed rim rocker last night, by the way, and he's been really good finding those angles and finding those explosive plays. But it's just interesting because Dunn is such a good tone setter that I agree with you. I don't know if you can go away from him either, even if teams are playing off of him. And he was 3 of 7 last night from 3. He was better. So he made him pay a little bit, but he might be one of the few guys that could still be that net positive, even while he's being played off of on the other end.
With DJ, I think they like him off the bench for one specific reason. Because they are going smaller, I think they like DJ's length next to Nico and Ben, especially as a switching style defense to where he also helps on the glass. And he can get them easy shots in the half court with his cutting. I think that's a thing that for a bench unit that will be a little bit hampered, but for offense, I think his offense on that unit, I think is a bigger deal.
Yeah, those back-to-back plays, was this against Atlanta where Ben Simmons was out there and on back-to-back plays, he fed DJ going to the basket. He had one that was a quick bounce pass to him as he was exploding to the basket.
Yeah, I think that was Atlanta, yeah.
Really unique passing skill set, and he and DJ do seem to have some great chemistry out there. So let's talk about what's going down tomorrow. Huge game. This is the one where if the Clippers find a way to beat OKC, everybody's talking about them being a contender again. I really believe that. I think nationally it's going to permeate in that way if they can take down the Thunder, because then they would have won 9 of 10, and their last 3 wins especially, very impressive victories. I'm trying to figure out if there's any weakness with the Oklahoma City Thunder, because they're not as bad rebounding-wise as they were last year, are they, Justin?
No, that is a juggernaut, I think, is the only way to really describe them. If there is a weakness with the OKC Thunder, I think it's something that they haven't remedied since when they got eliminated by Dallas last postseason, which is Shea is pretty much their only above average ball handler. Now, it's easier said than done just take Shea out by trapping him. Good luck. Teams have tried that. It's not very easy. If it was, everyone would do it, and OKC would be terrible, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. But I also just wonder if OKC's problem could be they have just one ball handler, and if your opponents Why not just let Shea do whatever he wants?
Treat him like Luka. Treat him like the Clippers did Luka at times. Like, let him get his, shut down everybody else.
It's going to be painful. He's incredible. But I do wonder if that might be the thought process for some teams. I mean, listen, we're talking about a team that's top 3 in offense and the best defensive team in the league.
By a lot.
There's not a lot of chinks in that armor. And, we talk about how rare the Clippers have been healthy this year. OKC hasn't been healthy a lot this year either. They missed Chet Holmgren for a long period of time. They missed Isaiah Hartenstein for a long period of time. Those two guys together, that's tough to deal with rim protection wise, as an offense against them. Besides the ball handler, is their 3-point shooting real? I don't know. It was all last season to a certain degree, and then it just kind of tapered off in the playoffs. So, they're a fascinating case. They should be by far the favorite in the West. They have everything you need to win the West and even win the title. I mean, it's not crazy that we can look up, in a couple of weeks at the end of the season and realize, man, they just won like 68 games. Like, this is crazy. Why? Like they're historically great. So they don't have a lot of weaknesses. But I'm curious to see what happens, because this is the first. Law Murray, when he asked Kawhi last night, he pointed out this is the first time Kawhi's played them this year. The other 3 games, Kawhi didn't play against them. They played 3 games against the Thunder by January 2nd. Kawhi returned on the 4th. So, he hasn't played them. 2 of the games were very close. We can point that out. They were very close. The game in OKC was a shootout. The first game in OKC was a crazy shootout. The first game in LA, I believe the Clippers were up 20 and lost that game. So, they've had chances. They're clearly not afraid of them, so there's not a lot of weaknesses with OKC, but I do think the Clippers have the potential to kind of lean into some of them. There's outside of Jalen Williams, I know people are going to point to Lou Dort, but Lou Dort's more of a guard defender. And I think Kawhi's big enough to where Lou Dort wouldn't really bother him. So I'm curious to see the Jalen Williams, Kawhi Leonard matchup and the like for like. I'm curious to see James, having to play against Caruso. Shea's obviously incredible. It's a fascinating matchup. And, we just watched Ivica Zubac demolish Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. I'm curious to see what happens against Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren.
Well, and Lou Dort was out their last game with a hip injury against Charlotte. You mentioned, like, what other team can have that rotation of point of attack perimeter defenders?
It's them.
It's OKC.
Yeah.
They're the one. They started Chet next to Hartenstein. Have they been doing that consistently? Because I'm wondering how they're going to match up against Ivica Zubac to start. Do they feel that they have to play Isaiah Hartenstein off the bat because of Big Zoo, you think?
They could, because Isaiah's really good. And I think because of the familiarity between the two, maybe you do that. They've done it at times this year too. They've started Isaiah and Chet together several times since they've had both of them. And they've been pretty good. It's kind of funny, like trying to point out like, oh, like where's the warts on OKC, right? Like, and then you look up and you're like, they're 12-1 in their last 13 games. The one loss they had was after they blew out Denver, and then they just lost to Denver the next night.
Right.
So, yeah, and their other loss, I believe, in the last like 6 weeks was in overtime to Minnesota, and they blew the 20-point fourth quarter lead at home, which never happens. Like, never happens in the NBA. So it's kind of wild.
Last year with the Clippers against the Lakers, but
well, to be fair, I will caveat this.
Game?
Well, what I was going to caveat it with is OKC was up by at least 20 entering the fourth, and you never really see a team. I think home teams have won like 100 straight. It was like 90 something straight games when they were up 20 entering the fourth. So yeah,
the Clippers were up 21 in the fourth quarter of that game against the Lakers last year.
Was that a Laker home game?
When LeBron went off with all those shots, and then they brought back in Kawhi, but it was like nobody could stop him. Daniel Tice was guarding LeBron some.
Oh, yeah. I don't remember if that was a Laker or a Clipper. home
It
game.
felt like one by the time LeBron got that hot. I'll say that, unfortunately. Like, that was an unbelievable performance. But yeah, it is a very rare thing, especially, and typically the Clippers, are the ones coming back down from the big deficits.
It's kind of funny actually, because I was looking it up today. The Clippers have 11 blown 10-point leads this season, but they've blown 9 fourth quarter leads. And I know people think like that's a lot of blown fourth quarter leads, right? It's kind of not. I believe it's like bottom 10 in the league in terms of fewest blown fourth quarter leads in the NBA this season. Indiana, Chicago, and Memphis have also blown 9 fourth quarter leads. The Lakers have blown 8. Denver and Portland have blown 7. You look at a team like Boston has blown 10.
Wow.
Like, a lot of these teams do blow, some fourth quarter leads. They're not Miami. They're not blowing 20, 10-point leads in a season like the Miami Heat have done. That's a problem for the Heat. But I think there's this thought of like your team just doesn't hold on to leads. I think this is like a thing around the NBA. Every team's fan base thinks they never hold on to leads. But compared to the rest of the league, most teams do pretty well. So the Clippers have done well. I'm genuinely curious to see this matchup play out. Not because I think it's going to tell us anything about a potential 1-8 matchup in a postseason series down the line, but just because I do think it's a nice little peek into where the Clippers are. And look, this is a tough week. We've talked about this week for a while coming up. Is just, you're playing Cleveland, the best at the time was the best team in the NBA. You're playing Memphis, and now you're playing OKC all at home. If they come out of this, first off, they already struck gold at 2-1 if they lose on Sunday. But if they go 3-0, I'm very curious to see what, the internal thought would be and also what the national narrative would slowly turn into. Because, by the way, they're only 2 wins away from a 14th consecutive winning season.
You point that out. Yes. They go 3-0. We're going to have a dialogue of where this team's at. The one thing I kept stressing, even back in late November, early December, when the Clippers were really showing that they are for real defensively and they're not going anywhere on that end. The one thing I kept saying is if they get last year's version of Kawhi back, they're going to be a top 10 offense and the turnovers are going to go way down. And both those things are happening right now. Last 10 games, the third best offense in the league. They're turning the ball over 3 less times per game around there. They went from about 16 turnovers per game to 13. I didn't know they were going to get Bogey, and he helps in that area too because it just takes away the usage rating and brings it down from James Harden having to do so much.
Same with Ben.
Same, exactly. Like there are so many things going in their favor right now. And then some, I saw Rusty Buckets was talking about them being another dark horse contender now. A lot of people are coming around on this Clippers team and just how good they can be. Having said all that, they're still 7th right now. So my final question for you is, what's your best guess with 12 games remaining where they end up in the Western Conference standings?
I don't know. Because Memphis looks like they're primed just to keep falling.
Ooh.
They got the Brandon Clark injury news, which wasn't good. He's out for the rest of the season. Josh should be back soon, but they just haven't looked good recently. They also have a very tough schedule. If the Clippers finish 6th, it's because Memphis falls out. That's literally what I think would be the thing that has to happen. Because Golden State,
Memphis, not the Golden State Warriors. Memphis is the team that falls out.
If it happens, it would be Memphis. I think because Golden State has just been too good recently, and I think Jimmy Butler has brought them some stability. Even if I think they're getting away with some like dodgy win. I'm so sorry about this toy that you're hearing. This is a happy dog, obviously. Memphis, Golden State's had some interesting wins lately where they've kind of gotten away with some, I guess, less than stellar play, especially against like Toronto. They didn't look good and they won that game.
What's the status of Steph after that tailbone whack that he took the other day, which was an unbelievably loud sound on the microphone that scared me?
Ohm said that the hope is, per the Warriors, the hope is that he would be back on this road trip. They're currently on tonight they've started a 6-game road trip starting in Atlanta tonight. So the hope is that he would be back at least at some point on this road trip. But yeah, if he's out for a while, I'm very curious to see what happens, even though they've played well without him this season. But
Give me
if
a
it-
percentage chance of them getting the 6th spot. Give me what's the percentage that the Clippers end up in 6th?
honestly, I know it sounds crazy. I think it's 50-50 at this point.
Ooh.
Because the fact that they own the tiebreaker with both Memphis and Golden State, I think is the biggest factor in all this. Minnesota obviously is the looming team here, but
Well, they have by far the easiest schedule, the Timberwolves, the rest of the way.
yeah. So it's going to be, I think it's a 50-50 race for them to get there. It also just comes down to how serious and well they take care of business in the back-to-backs that Kawhi just doesn't play in. They need to win those games. They played Dallas in a back-to-back, and yeah, the Dallas Mavericks aren't good right now, but they play hard. If you watch the Dallas Mavericks, they play hard.
They play so hard, they're injured, though, and might have to forfeit games.
Look, man, it is what it is at this point with the Dallas Mavericks. I feel like every day we just have to relitigate whatever the hell happened there. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a very interesting race to 6 and even potentially 5. I guess maybe like the door's still open for 5, so who knows? The dangerous thing with looking at the playoff race right now is like you start playing the what if game of like past games that they lost. What if they split the Phoenix series? Okay, well now they have 28 losses, and not only are they 5th, they have a chance for 2. And then you start playing other like
What if
it's a
the
dangerous
Pelicans
game.
don't hit 23s?
Listen, well, okay, that's just a life experience now that we just have to come to accept. Okay, the Pelicans are just gonna do it. We just gotta accept it at this point. But yeah, it's funny because I started thinking the other day when I saw you at the arena yesterday. I started thinking about the conversation we had preseason on here about like what our win total projection for the Clippers was going to be. And I think I said 43. And I said, because if you can win like 2/3 of your Kawhi games and not be terrible in your non-Kawhi games. Well, not only were they not terrible in their non-Kawhi games, they're 23-20 when he hasn't played this year. They're 17-10 when he's played. If they continue winning at the 17-10 rate, they're going to be right there for 6.
That's weird because a lot of people like a week ago were telling me they were better without Kawhi, but that changed pretty quick.
He's just so good. In talking with people around the team, high-ranking people around the team before the season, I had one person tell me that their spouse feels a general sense of comfort watching the team when he's on the floor as opposed to like when he's out for the game. They're like, oh, Kawhi's here. We're going to be okay. Like, it's like that, like euphoria, like everything is fine. Kawhi's here. And it's such a strange feeling to get back after not having him for essentially half the season.
Especially the version we've got in the last 5 games or so now, where it looks like last year's Kawhi, and that was a historically efficient player. He is Justin Russo. At FlyByNight, KNITE is where you find him on X. Justin, tease out your upcoming story you're working on and what people can look at right now on your Substack should they subscribe immediately after this interview like they should be.
So I actually recently posted an article, a feature article I did on Patty Mills. It's one of the most fun times I've ever had talking to just a person, not even just a player, just a person. I spent about a half hour with him over several days talking about everything. And I couldn't thank Patty enough. I actually talked to him the other day, and he thanked me for the article. And he said that he sent it to family members in Australia who thought it was pretty good. So that made me feel good.
Wow.
So that's free for everybody. If you go to my Substack, you'll see the Patty Mills story. Everyone could read that. You don't need to subscribe for that one. Everyone could read that. I'm trying to work on one with Ben Simmons, but the schedule's been kind of wonky because I don't know if people know this. Ben Simmons is an avid fisherman, and he has his own like fishing company. So I find that pretty fascinating. So I'm trying to talk to him about, or Ben and I are supposed to talk about that. But I am going to end up writing about the Euros because they're it's so fascinating to watch them. it feels like such a different brand of basketball when they're on the floor. Like I remember the game.
It feels like the Spurs.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's just very strange to watch. You're like, oh, you have James Harden doing all this dazzling stuff with the ball, with all the insane crossovers he can do. Killing Evan Mobley in broad daylight was insane. And then it's, oh, here's quick one-touch movement and passing, and oh yeah, we got a layup and a dunk out of it. It's like, what's even happening anymore? In the like, they have somehow married two styles of play somewhat seamlessly, and it doesn't make sense at how quickly they've done it when you look back to where they were right after the All-Star break. Because if we all remember, going to the All-Star break, everyone was just at the highest of highs. That stretch right after the All-Star break, it was like getting kicked in the teeth, and they sounded like it. Talking to guys after that game, talking to Ty after that game, man, it was rough, and they've responded incredibly, and I think fans should be proud about that. Like they stared adversity in the face, and they pushed it aside so far. So long way to go, though. It doesn't sound like it, but 12 games is a lot of time, but it's going to come pretty quick. So this season has flown by, and I hope it takes a little bit longer.
Well, proud of the work you're doing. Great job covering this team. Everybody, go subscribe to his Substack, and you can even get a little taste, first off, just reading the Patty Mills story that he did. But it will confirm things for you that you need more Justin Russo in your life covering this Clippers basketball team. Justin, thanks for doing this once again here on Clippers Talk.
Thank you, man. I hope you're doing well. I'll see you later. See you Sunday. Tomorrow,
See you
whatever
tomorrow.
that is. Every day is the same day now, so I'll see you tomorrow.
Bro, you're telling me I'm on day 169 of doing these shows every day.
Dude, I don't know what kind of drugs you're doing, but keep doing them, brother. You're doing well.
Thank you. Before we get out of here, I do want to remind you guys, Clippers Talk is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest way to play fantasy sports, and it's available in over 30 states. All you got to do is pick higher or lower on your favorite player's stats or your least favorite player's stats, and you can win up to 100 times your money. Make picks, win money, and I got the free promo code for you that will give new users a free pick and up to $1,000 in bonus cash. The promo code is LAC, and you can find it and the referral link in the description down below in this episode of Clippers Talk. Underdog Fantasy, make picks, win money. All right, got to get back to the drugs so I can stay awake the rest of the day and do some more research on Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm kidding. My drugs are fruit and vegetables. That's all I need. Nature's candy. All right. Love you all. We'll talk to you soon. Go check out Justin Russo's work. Give him a follow. Let him know you were listening to him on Clippers Talk. Oh, yeah. Maybe you guys could subscribe. I'm trying to get to 4K. We're close. Subscribe. Hit the like button. I know everybody says this, and it's annoying when they do it on their YouTube channels. You know the drill. Subscribe. Hit the like button. I guess I got to play the game. We will talk to you guys tomorrow. Pre-game for Clippers and Oklahoma City Thunder at Into a Dome starts right back here at 5.